Oh, look, it's the spinster with cats. The words hit me like ice water as I walked into my cousin Sydney's pristine living room, carrying a casserole dish that suddenly felt heavy in my hands. 23 people turned to stare, their conversations dying mid-sentence. My name is Kendall, and at 42, I've heard every variation of this joke at every family gathering for the past decade. Sydney, that's not... Ainsley started, but Sydney cut her off with a laugh. What? I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Kendall shows up alone again, probably rushed here straight from feeding her army of strays. Sydney's voice carried across the room like she wanted an audience. When are you going to get serious about finding someone, Ken? Time's ticking. I set the casserole on the kitchen counter, keeping my expression neutral. The green bean casserole you requested. Pearl's recipe. Of course it is, Stella chimed in from her spot by the window, phone in hand, probably live streaming our family dysfunction to her followers. Everything's about Grandma Pearl with you. It's like you're stuck in the past. Paige nodded from the couch, her marriage counselor voice dripping with fake concern. Kendall, honey, we're worried about you. This obsession with taking care of an elderly woman instead of building your own life. It's not healthy. She's our grandmother, I said quietly. She's 93 and barely remembers our names half the time, Sydney shot back. Meanwhile, you're wasting your prime years playing nurse instead of finding a husband and having kids like a normal person. The room erupted in nervous laughter. I watched my cousins exchange glances, feeding off each other's cruelty like they always did. Paige with her perfect marriage that she paraded on social media. Stella with her spiritual influencer brand and her carefully curated life. Sydney with her real estate empire and designer everything. And little Ainsley always following their lead, always laughing at their jokes. I'm not wasting anything, I said. Really? Sydney leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you're 42, single, unemployed since the library laid you off, and spending all your time with someone who's going to die soon anyway. That sounds like waste to me. Sydney, Ainsley gasped, but she was still smiling. What? I'm being honest. We all dance around it, but someone needs to say it. Kendall's life is pathetic. I felt heat rise in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. Pearl isn't dying. She's living. And she's sharp as ever when people actually take time to talk to her instead of just posting selfies at her bedside for Instagram. Stella's phone lowered slightly. Excuse me? You heard me. When's the last time any of you actually visited her? Not for a photo op, not for a holiday obligation. When did you last sit with her and ask how she's doing? The room went quiet. Sydney's jaw tightened. We all have busy lives, Kendall, Paige said in her therapist tone. Some of us have responsibilities, marriages to maintain, children to raise, careers to build. We can't all live like hermits. Right, I said. You're all so busy building these perfect lives that you forgot about the woman who helped raise us. Don't lecture us about family loyalty, Sydney snapped. You're the one who moved back into her house like some kind of live-in caretaker. It's weird, Kendall. People talk. Let them talk. They do. Trust me. Sydney's smile turned cruel. They wonder why you never married, why you don't date, why you're so intense about everything. Some people think you're just waiting for Pearl to die so you can inherit something. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. I felt every eye in the room on me, waiting for my reaction. Is that what you think? I asked. Sydney shrugged. I think you've made some interesting life choices. I looked around the room at these people I'd grown up with, these women who'd once been my closest friends. Now they stared at me like I was a curiosity, a cautionary tale, a punchline to their success stories. Well, I said, picking up my purse, thanks for the warm welcome. I'll tell Pearl you all said hello. Kendall, wait, Ainsley called, but I was already walking toward the door. Give our love to Grandma, Stella called after me, her phone already back up, probably recording my exit for her stories. I drove home in silence, their laughter echoing in my head. But as I pulled into Pearl's driveway, our driveway, I saw her silhouette in the kitchen window, waiting for me like she always did. 3 days later, Pearl died peacefully in her sleep. And 2 days after that, Curtis, the family lawyer, called with news that would change everything. Kendall, we need to talk. Pearl left specific instructions about her will. The whole family needs to be present for the reading. No exceptions. Curtis's law office felt like a funeral parlor, heavy curtains, dark wood, and the kind of silence that makes you whisper. The entire family had gathered, filling every chair in the conference room. Sydney sat at the head of the table like she owned the place, Paige beside her with a legal pad, already taking notes. Stella live-streamed until Curtis asked her to stop. "Thank you all for coming," Curtis said, adjusting his glasses. Pearl was very specific about how this should be handled. "Just get on with it," Sydney muttered. "We all know how this goes." I sat in the back corner, watching my cousins exchange confident glances. Ainsley kept checking her phone. Stella reapplied her lipstick. They'd already divided Pearl's estate in their minds. Then Aunt Zara walked in. The room went dead silent. I hadn't seen my grandmother's sister in 15 years, not since the big fight that split the family. She looked older, harder, her eyes scanning the room like she was appraising everything. "Zara," Curtis nodded. "Pearl mentioned you might come." "Of course I came," she said, taking the empty chair next to Sydney. "Pearl was my sister. I have every right to be here." Her husband Bowen shuffled in behind her, looking uncomfortable. Sydney immediately started whispering to her mother, their heads bent together like conspirators. "Now then," Curtis cleared his throat. Pearl left very detailed instructions. She wanted me to read this letter aloud in her own words. He pulled out a handwritten letter, Pearl's familiar script covering several pages. "My dearest family," Curtis began reading, "if you're hearing this, I'm finally free of this old body and hopefully giving the angels a run for their money." A few people chuckled nervously. "I've had 93 years to watch this family, to see who shows up when it matters and who shows up when it benefits them. I've seen kindness and cruelty, loyalty and betrayal. I've kept my mouth shut about a lot of things, but death has a way of loosening tongues." Sydney shifted in her seat. Paige stopped taking notes. "To my granddaughters, Sydney, Paige, Stella, and Ainsley, you are beautiful, successful women who've built impressive lives. You've also spent the last decade treating your cousin Kendall like she's broken simply because she chose a different path." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "You mocked her for being single, called her pathetic behind her back, and made family gatherings so uncomfortable that she almost stopped coming entirely. You assumed she was caring for me out of some desperate need for attention or inheritance." Stella's face had gone pale. Ainsley was staring at her hands. "You were wrong." Curtis turned the page, his voice steady. "Kendall was the only one who visited me regularly without an agenda. She cataloged my books, organized my photos, and listened to my stories about the old days. She held my hand during doctor visits and made sure I took my medications. She did this not because she expected anything in return, but because she loved me." I felt tears threatening, but I kept my expression neutral. "Therefore, I leave my entire estate, including the house on Maple Street, the lake house, all bank accounts, investments, jewelry, and personal belongings, to my granddaughter, Kendall Fuller." The explosion was immediate. "What?" Sydney shot to her feet. "That's impossible. This is ridiculous." Paige slammed her pen down. "She manipulated a sick old woman." Zara's voice cut through the chaos. "I'm contesting this will." Pearl wasn't in her right mind. She was completely lucid, Curtis said firmly. I have medical documentation from 3 separate doctors confirming her mental competency at the time this will was drafted. How much? Stella whispered. How much is the estate worth? Curtis consulted his papers. Approximately $8.2 million. The room erupted again. Sydney started pacing, her hands shaking. Paige was frantically scribbling notes. Stella looked like she might faint. This is insane, Sydney shouted. We're family too. We deserve something. Pearl left each of you a personal item, Curtis continued calmly. Sydney, you receive her pearl earrings. Paige, her wedding ring. Stella, her vintage camera. Ainsley, her recipe box. Recipe box? Ainsley's voice cracked. That's it? And Zara, Curtis turned to my aunt. Pearl left you this. He handed her a small envelope. Zara tore it open and pulled out a single photograph, old and yellowed. Her face went white. She wouldn't, Zara whispered. What is it? Bowen asked. Zara crumpled the photo in her fist. We're leaving. Come on, Bowen. Wait, Sydney called after her. Mom, we need to stick together on this. We can fight it. But Zara was already heading for the door, Bowen trailing behind her. This isn't over, Sydney pointed at me. I don't know what kind of spell you cast on her, but this isn't over. One by one they filed out, leaving me alone with Curtis. There's more, he said quietly, reaching into his briefcase. He handed me a sealed envelope marked for Kendall's eyes only and a small flash drive. She wanted you to have these after everyone left. I stared at the envelope, Pearl's handwriting shaky but determined. What's on the flash drive? I asked. Curtis smiled grimly. Receipts, I believe she called them. Pearl was very thorough about documenting things. I slipped both items into my purse, my hands surprisingly steady. Time to begin, I said. I waited until midnight to open Pearl's envelope. Sitting at her kitchen table with a cup of tea and her old reading lamp casting a warm circle of light. The house felt different now, mine, but still heavy with her presence. The letter was brief but devastating. Kendall, my dear girl, if you're reading this, then you've seen their true faces at last. I'm sorry you had to endure their cruelty, but I needed you to understand what we're dealing with. The flash drive contains everything, screenshots, recordings, financial documents. They thought I was just a doddering old woman who didn't understand technology. They were wrong. Use what I've given you wisely. Make them understand that actions have consequences. But remember, revenge is a dish best served with precision, not rage. All my love, Pearl. P.S. Check the property records for the lake house. Stella's been busy. My hands trembled as I plugged in the flash drive. Folders appeared on my laptop screen, each labeled with a cousin's name. I started with Sydney's folder. The first file was a recorded phone call from 6 months ago. Pearl's voice, shaky but clear, and Sydney's voice, honey-sweet and manipulative. Grandma, I found this amazing investment opportunity. If you sell the downtown property, I could triple your money in 2 years. Sydney, dear, that property has been in our family for 40 years. Exactly. It's just sitting there. You could be making real money. I have connections. I could handle everything for you. Just sign the papers. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. These opportunities don't last forever. The next file showed text messages between Sydney and someone named Marcus. Sydney, got the old lady considering the downtown sale. Marcus, perfect. Our client is eager to close. Sydney, what's my cut again? Marcus, 15% of the sale price. Easy money. Sydney, she's stubborn, but I'll wear her down. I stared at the screen. Sydney had been trying to manipulate Pearl into selling property so she could pocket a commission. The downtown property was worth at least $2 million. Paige's folder was equally damning. Screenshots of her private Facebook posts, the ones hidden from family. Family dinner tonight. Have to pretend to care about Grandma's stories again. Kendall's there being her usual pathetic self. Someone needs to tell her that playing nursemaid isn't going to land her a husband. Kendall's getting weirder. She actually takes notes when Grandma talks. Like, girl, she's not going to remember any of this tomorrow anyway. I swear Kendall thinks she's going to inherit everything. Reality check coming soon. But the worst was a voice memo Paige had sent to Sydney. I'm telling you, we need to stage an intervention. Kendall's isolating Grandma from the rest of us. She's probably filling her head with lies about how we don't care. We should get her declared incompetent or something. I know people who could help with that. My tea had gone cold. I opened Stella's folder with shaking fingers. The first document was a property deed. The lake house, Pearl's beloved retreat where she'd taken us as children, was listed as belonging to Stella's wellness company. The deed was dated 3 months ago. I scrolled through more files. Stella had been using the lake house for her spiritual retreats, charging people thousands of dollars to stay in what she advertised as my family's sacred healing space. She'd raised over $50,000 through crowdfunding, claiming she needed money to restore my grandmother's legacy property, the property she didn't own, the property that now belonged to me. My phone buzzed, a text from Ainsley. Kendall, I'm so sorry about today. The others are planning something. Sydney's talking about hiring a lawyer. Please call me. I set the phone aside and kept reading. Ainsley's folder was smaller, but it contained something that made my blood boil. A group chat between all 4 cousins from 2 weeks ago. Sydney, Grandma's getting worse. We need to discuss what happens next. Paige, Kendall's there 24/7 now. It's creepy. Stella, she's definitely angling for the inheritance. Ainsley, maybe we should visit more? Sydney, why? So we can watch Kendall perform for attention? Paige, someone needs to get her away from Grandma before she completely poisons her against us. Stella, what if we told Grandma that Kendall's been saying bad things about us? Sydney, genius. Make her think Kendall's the problem. Ainsley, I don't know. That seems mean. Paige, it's not mean. It's protective. We're protecting Grandma from manipulation. The conversation continued for pages. They'd planned to turn Pearl against me, to make her think I was the toxic one. They'd discussed having me banned from visiting, getting restraining orders, even having me committed for obsessive behavior. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, Pearl's words echoing in my mind. Revenge is a dish best served with precision, not rage. My phone rang. Curtis. Kendall? I hope I'm not calling too late. I wanted to give you a heads up. Sydney contacted my office this afternoon. She's hired an attorney to contest the will. On what grounds? Undue influence. They're claiming you manipulated Pearl while she was mentally compromised. I almost laughed. Do they have any evidence of that? None whatsoever. In fact, I have extensive documentation proving the opposite, but they're going to make this ugly. Let them try. There's something else. I did some research on that property situation you mentioned. Stella's been advertising retreats at the lake house without permission. That's fraud, Kendall. Criminal fraud. I smiled in the darkness. Curtis, I think it's time we had a conversation about my options. I'll clear my calendar for tomorrow morning. After I hung up, I opened my laptop again and started making a list. Sydney's illegal kickback scheme, Paige's defamation campaign, Stella's fraud, Ainsley's participation in their conspiracy. Pearl was right. They thought she was just a doddering old woman. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I started with Stella because her fraud was the most obvious. At 7 a.m., I called Marcus Rivera, an investigative blogger who specialized in exposing influencer scams. I'd followed his work for years. Marcus, this is Kendall Fuller. I have a story for you about wellness fraud and property theft. I'm listening. How would you like exclusive access to documents proving a major influencer has been illegally using someone else's property for paid retreats? 2 hours later, Marcus was sitting in my kitchen, his laptop open, eyes wide as he scrolled through the evidence. "This is incredible," he muttered. "She's raised over 50 grand using photos of a property she doesn't own. And these testimonials..." He clicked through Stella's Instagram. "Look at this. Life-changing weekend at my family's sacred healing space." She's literally lying to her followers. There's more. I showed him the crowdfunding page where Stella claimed she needed money to restore Grandma's legacy property for future generations. "She's not just committing fraud," Marcus said. "She's doing it while her grandmother was dying. This is going to destroy her. That's the idea." Marcus published the expose at noon. Within an hour, after Stella scam was trending, her comment section exploded with angry followers demanding refunds. 3 major sponsors dropped her before dinner. My phone rang at 6 p.m. Stella, sobbing. "Kendall, please, you have to help me. Someone leaked private information about my business. My whole life is falling apart." "What makes you think I can help?" "Because you're family. We're supposed to stick together. Like you stuck by me at Sydney's party? When you called me pathetic?" Silence. "Stella, you've been using Pearl's property to run illegal retreats. You raised money under false pretenses. That's fraud." "I was going to tell Grandma eventually. I was building something beautiful. You were stealing." "It's not stealing. It's family property. Was, past tense. It's my property now." She hung up. The next morning, I turned my attention to Paige. Curtis had given me the contact information for a journalist who covered marriage counseling ethics violations. Dr. Sarah Kim had been investigating unlicensed therapy practices for months. "Dr. Kim, I have information about a marriage counselor who may be violating professional ethics standards." I sent her screenshots of Paige's private posts mocking her clients, her Facebook rants about stupid couples who can't figure out basic communication, and most damning, evidence that she'd been practicing without proper supervision after her license lapsed 6 months ago. "This is serious," Dr. Kim said during our phone call. "If she's been seeing clients without a valid license, that's criminal." There's more. I forwarded her the voice memo where Paige discussed getting Pearl declared incompetent. She's also been planning to manipulate an elderly family member. Dr. Kim's article went live that afternoon. Local marriage counselor practicing without license, mocking clients online. The state licensing board launched an investigation within hours. Paige's practice was shut down pending review. My phone exploded with calls. First Paige, screaming, "You vindictive witch, you've destroyed my career. You destroyed it yourself when you let your license lapse and kept seeing clients. That was a paperwork error. I was going to renew it 6 months ago. And you've been charging people for unlicensed therapy while mocking them behind their backs. Those posts were private. Nothing's private when you're defrauding people, Paige." She hung up. Sydney called 10 minutes later. "What the hell are you doing, Kendall?" "Cleaning house." "This is insane. You're destroying the family." "I'm holding people accountable for their actions. Stella's lost everything. Paige might face criminal charges." "Good." "Good? These are your cousins." "My cousins who spent years treating me like garbage. My cousins who tried to manipulate a dying woman. My cousins who plan to have me declared mentally unstable." Silence. "You know about that?" "I know about everything, Sydney. Pearl documented it all. She was senile. She was sharp as a tack, and you know it. She heard every cruel word, saw every fake smile, caught every lie. We never meant. Yes, you did. You meant every word. Sydney's voice turned cold. You think you've won something? This isn't over. I'm going to prove you manipulated her. Try it. I have recordings of you trying to manipulate her into selling property so you could pocket a commission. The line went dead. That evening, Ainsley showed up at my door, tears streaming down her face. Kendall, please. I know I was part of it, but I never wanted this to happen. I let her in, poured her tea, and waited. Sydney's talking about hiring a private investigator to dig up dirt on you. She's convinced you somehow brainwashed Grandma. And what do you think? Ainsley stared into her cup. I think Grandma was smarter than any of us gave her credit for. I think she saw exactly who we really were. And I think we deserved this. She looked up at me. But Kendall, Sydney's not going to stop. She's talking about contesting the will, claiming Grandma wasn't competent. She's desperate. Let her try. She's also talking about that group chat. She thinks if she deletes it, there's no evidence. I smiled. Too late for that. Ainsley's eyes widened. You have copies? I have everything, Ainsley. Every text, every call, every cruel comment. Pearl made sure of that. She was quiet for a long moment. What do you want from me? The truth. All of it. Screenshots of every conversation, every plan you made against me. And if I give you that, then maybe we can find a way forward that doesn't destroy you too. Ainsley pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I'll send you everything. Ainsley's screenshots arrived at midnight, dozens of them showing months of planning and scheming. But the most valuable information came from her voice memo. Kendall, there's something else. Sydney's been using insider information from Grandma to buy properties around the lake house. She knew Grandma owned more land than anyone realized, and she's been quietly purchasing the surrounding lots through shell companies. She was planning to develop the whole area once Grandma died. I stared at my phone. Sydney hadn't just been after Pearl's money. She'd been playing a long game, positioning herself to profit from Pearl's death. The next morning, I called Curtis. I need you to pull all property records for the lake area. I think Sydney's been engaging in some questionable real estate practices. What kind of practices? The kind that involve using confidential family information for personal gain. Curtis called back 2 hours later. Kendall, this is worse than I thought. Sydney's purchased 6 properties around your lake house in the past year. She used 3 different LLCs, but they all trace back to her. And get this, she's been marketing them as future luxury development opportunities to investors. While Pearl was still alive, she's essentially been selling the idea that she'd have control of the entire lake area once your grandmother passed. I felt sick. Can we prove she used inside information? I'm already on it. I've contacted the State Real Estate Commission. Using confidential family information for personal real estate gain is a serious ethics violation, and if she's been practicing without proper disclosure to her clients about her personal interest in the area, her license could be suspended. At minimum. I spent the afternoon gathering more evidence. Pearl's folder on Sydney contained recorded conversations where Sydney had casually asked about property boundaries, mineral rights, and future development plans. She'd been pumping Pearl for information while pretending to make small talk. The smoking gun was a recorded call from 3 months ago. Grandma, you know that old survey map you showed me? The one with all the property lines? Could I borrow it? I'm just curious about our family history. Of course, dear, it's in the desk drawer. And those mineral rights papers, are those still valid? Oh yes, they're quite valuable. The whole lake area sits on limestone deposits. Interesting. I'll have to research that sometime. Sydney had used that survey map to identify exactly which properties to buy. She'd known about the mineral rights before anyone else. She'd built her entire investment strategy on information Pearl had shared in confidence. I forwarded everything to the State Real Estate Commission with a formal complaint. Then I called a reporter at the local business journal. I have a story about a realtor using insider family information to manipulate property investments while her elderly grandmother was dying. The story broke Thursday morning. Local realtor under investigation for ethics violations, insider trading. Sydney's phone started ringing immediately. By noon, 3 of her biggest clients had fired her. By evening, the Real Estate Commission had opened a formal investigation. She called me at 8 p.m., her voice shaking with rage. "You're destroying my life." "You destroyed your own life when you decided to profit from Pearl's death." "I wasn't profiting from her death. I was making smart investments. Using information she gave you in confidence. Information you used to manipulate property values while lying to investors about your personal connections to the area. That's not illegal. Actually, it is. It's called insider trading, and when you're a licensed realtor, it's also an ethics violation. You can't prove I used her information." "I have recordings, Sydney. Pearl recorded everything." Silence. "That's impossible. Grandma didn't know how to use recording equipment." "Pearl was 93, not stupid. She had a digital recorder app on her phone. She documented every conversation where you pumped her for information." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Then why did you ask her about mineral rights 3 months ago? Why did you borrow that survey map? Why did you purchase 6 properties in a perfect circle around the lake house?" More silence. "I could have made us all rich," she whispered finally. "You could have asked permission. You could have included the family. Instead, you decided to manipulate a dying woman for personal gain. She was going to die anyway. And there it is, the truth. You were counting on her death." Sydney started crying. "I have investors, Kendall. People who trusted me. If I lose my license, I can't pay them back. You should have thought about that before you built your business on lies. Please, I'm begging you. Call off the investigation. I'll give you half of everything I made." "It's too late for that." "It's not too late. We're family." "Family doesn't steal from each other, Sydney." She hung up. An hour later, my doorbell rang. Zara stood on my porch, her face twisted with fury. "You little witch. You've destroyed my daughters. Your daughters destroyed themselves. They made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. These weren't mistakes. They were calculated decisions to hurt me and exploit Pearl." Zara pushed past me into the house. "Where is it?" "Where's what?" "The evidence. The recordings. Whatever lies Pearl filled your head with." I crossed my arms. "Get out of my house." "This is Pearl's house." "You stole it. Pearl left it to me legally. You have no right to be here." Zara's eyes were wild. "She poisoned you against us, just like she poisoned everyone against me 50 years ago." "What happened 50 years ago, Zara?" She froze. Nothing happened. But I could see the fear in her eyes. Whatever was in that photograph Curtis had given her, it was big enough to make her run. "Get out," I said quietly, "before I call the police." Zara backed toward the door. "This isn't over. We'll contest the will. We'll prove she was incompetent." "Try it." After she left, I called Curtis. Zara was just here making threats. What was in that photograph Pearl left her? Curtis was quiet for a moment. "I think that's a conversation for tomorrow, but Kendall, you might want to check Pearl's safe deposit box. She left you the key for a reason." The safe deposit box key was hidden in Pearl's jewelry box, taped to the bottom of her wedding ring case. At the bank, the manager led me to a small room where Box 247 waited. Inside were documents, photographs, and a leather journal I'd never seen before. The first photograph made my breath catch. Zara, maybe 20 years old, standing next to a man in a business suit, both of them signing papers. Pearl had written on the back, Z selling our salon lease to competitor 1963, kept 100% of sale money. The journal entries started in 1963. Zara thinks I don't know what she did. She sold our business lease behind my back and kept all the money. When I confronted her, she claimed it was compensation for doing the paperwork. 40 years of friendship destroyed for $3,000. She's telling everyone I'm the one who destroyed our partnership, that I was jealous of her success. The lies come so easily to her. I've decided to let her think she won. Sometimes the best revenge is patience. I flipped through decades of entries documenting Zara's betrayals, stolen clients, spread rumors, attempts to sabotage Pearl's new business ventures. But the most damning entry was from 1987. Zara tried to seduce Harold at the Christmas party. When he rejected her, she told everyone he made advances on her. She nearly destroyed my marriage with her lies. I have witnesses, but Harold asked me to let it go for the sake of family peace. I agreed, but I'm documenting everything. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. We need to meet, tonight. Lake House. Come alone. Z. I drove to the lake house as the sun was setting, Pearl's journal in my passenger seat. Zara's car was already there, parked crookedly like she'd been drinking. She was sitting on the dock, staring at the water. When she heard my footsteps, she didn't turn around. She kept records of everything, didn't she? Zara's voice was flat. Yes. Even the salon? Especially the salon. Zara laughed bitterly. 40 years I've been waiting for her to use that against me. 40 years of family gatherings where she'd smile and act like nothing happened. I sat down beside her, keeping my distance. Why did you do it? I was 20 years old and pregnant with Sydney. My boyfriend had left. I had no money, and Pearl was talking about expanding the business. I needed cash fast. So you stole from your best friend. I told myself I'd pay her back. But then Sydney was born, and Paige came 2 years later, and there was never enough money. She turned to look at me. Do you know what it's like to live with that kind of guilt? Do you know what it's like to be treated like garbage by people who should love you? Zara flinched. The girls didn't mean... Yes, they did. Just like you meant to steal from Pearl. Just like you meant to lie about Harold. Her face went white. She told you about Harold? I read her journal. All of it. Zara stood up abruptly, pacing to the edge of the dock. Harold was drunk. He was flirting with everyone at that party. But he didn't make advances on you. You made advances on him, and when he rejected you, you lied. I was hurt. I was angry. You nearly destroyed their marriage, but I didn't. They stayed together. Because Harold was a good man who chose to forgive you, not because you deserved it. Zara spun around, her eyes blazing. You think you're so perfect, don't you? Sitting there judging everyone from your ivory tower. I think I'm tired of being everyone's punching bag. Poor little Kendall. No husband, no kids, no life. So you latched onto a dying old woman and turned her against her own family. I stood up slowly. Pearl wasn't turned against anyone. She just finally saw people for who they really were. She was vindictive. She held grudges for decades. She was hurt by someone she trusted, someone she loved like a sister. Zara's anger crumbled. She sat down heavily on a dock post. I know what I did was wrong, but it was 50 years ago, Kendall. When does it end? When you stop raising daughters who think it's okay to treat people the way you treated Pearl. My girls are good people. Your girls tried to have me declared mentally incompetent so they could steal Pearl's inheritance. They mocked her while she was dying. They planned to manipulate her into thinking I was the problem. Zara's face crumpled. That's not... They wouldn't... I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Sydney's voice filled the air. Someone needs to get her away from Grandma before she completely poisons her against us. Then Paige, what if we told Grandma that Kendall's been saying bad things about us? Zara listened in horror as her daughters planned to destroy me and manipulate Pearl. Oh God, she whispered, what have I done? You taught them that lying and stealing were acceptable as long as you didn't get caught. I never meant for them to turn out like this, but they did. And now they're facing the consequences. Zara looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. What do you want from me? I want you to stop enabling them, stop funding their legal challenges, stop pretending they're victims. And if I do that, then maybe we can find a way to move forward that doesn't destroy what's left of this family. Zara stared at the water for a long time. Pearl really documented everything? Everything. Including the fact that you've been telling people she was senile for the past 5 years to discredit anything she might say about the past. I was protecting myself. You were protecting your lies. A car door slammed in the distance, footsteps on the gravel path. Sydney appeared at the top of the hill, her face twisted with rage. Mom, what are you doing here with her? Zara stood up slowly. Sydney, we need to talk. About what? About how she's destroying our family? About how we destroyed ourselves. Sydney stormed down to the dock. Don't you dare take her side. I'm not taking sides. I'm facing facts. The fact is that Kendall manipulated a sick old woman. The fact is that Pearl was never sick, and we're the ones who manipulated her. Zara's voice was steady now. All of us. Sydney's face went pale. Mom, what are you saying? I'm saying it's over, Sydney. The lies, the schemes, the legal challenges. It's over. You can't be serious. I'm done, baby. I'm tired of carrying this poison around. Sydney looked between us, her world crumbling. Fine. If you won't fight for this family, I will. She turned and stormed back up the hill. A moment later, her car roared to life and disappeared into the darkness. Zara and I sat in silence, listening to the water lap against the dock. She won't give up, Zara said finally. I know. She'll try to destroy you. Let her try. Zara stood up. For what it's worth, Kendall, I'm sorry. For all of it. I know you are. Will that be enough? I looked at her, this woman who'd caused so much pain, who'd raised daughters to continue the cycle of cruelty. We'll see. Ainsley called me at 6 a.m., her voice shaking. Kendall, Sydney's lost it. She showed up at my house at midnight, screaming about how you and Mom betrayed the family. She wants me to sign an affidavit saying you brainwashed Grandma. What did you tell her? I told her no. That's when she really went crazy. She said if I didn't help her, she'd make sure everyone knew I was part of the conspiracy against her. What conspiracy? That's what I asked. She's convinced we're all working together to destroy her. She's talking about hiring a private investigator, contesting the will, even suing you for emotional distress. I sat up in bed. Ainsley, I need those screenshots from the group chat. All of them. I already sent them to you. I need them printed and notarized. Can you meet me at Curtis's office this morning? Why? Because it's time to end this. At Curtis's office, Ainsley handed over a thick folder of printed screenshots, text messages, and voice recordings. Her hands were shaking. "This feels wrong," she whispered. "These are my sisters. Your sisters who plan to have me declared mentally incompetent." Curtis looked up from the documents. "Ainsley, I need you to understand something. If Sydney proceeds with her legal challenge, all of this will come out anyway. The difference is whether you're part of the solution or part of the problem." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Sydney's attorney will subpoena everyone's phone records. These conversations will be discovered during legal discovery. By providing them now, you're showing good faith." Ainsley's face went pale. "Sydney doesn't know that, does she?" "Apparently not," Curtis said grimly. "She's also hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on Kendall. The investigator called my office yesterday asking about Pearl's medical records." "Can they get those?" I asked. "Not without a court order, but they're trying to build a case that Pearl was incompetent when she made the will." I pulled out Pearl's journal. "Will this help?" Curtis read a few entries, his eyebrows rising. "Kendall, this is gold. Pearl documented her mental state, her reasoning, her observations about family dynamics. This proves she was completely lucid and aware of everyone's behavior. There's more." I showed him the recordings on the flash drive. "She documented every conversation where Sydney tried to manipulate her into selling property." Curtis plugged in the flash drive and listened to a few recordings. "This is devastating for Sydney's case. She can't claim Pearl was incompetent while simultaneously being recorded trying to manipulate her for business deals." My phone buzzed. A text from Sydney. "Family meeting, tonight, 7 p.m., Mom's house. Everyone needs to be there." I showed the text to Curtis and Ainsley. "Don't go," Curtis warned. "She's desperate. Desperate people do dangerous things." "I'm going," I said. "It's time to finish this." "Then I'm coming with you," Ainsley said quietly. "Ainsley, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. I've been a coward long enough." That evening, we arrived at Zara's house to find all the cars already there. Sydney, Paige, Stella, even Bowen. They were gathered in the living room like a tribunal. Sydney stood up when we walked in. "Finally, the traitors arrive." "Sydney," Zara warned, "we talked about this." "No, Mom. You talked. I listened. Now it's my turn." Sydney turned to face me. "I know what you're doing, Kendall. You think you've won, but you haven't." "I'm not trying to win anything." "Bullshit. You manipulated a sick old woman, turned her against her own family, and now you're trying to destroy us one by one." Paige nodded from the couch. "My practice is ruined. I might face criminal charges." "Because you were practicing without a license," I said calmly. "Because you leaked private information." Stella looked up from her phone. "I've lost everything. My sponsors, my followers, my business. All because of lies you spread." "I didn't spread lies. I exposed the truth." Sydney stepped closer. "The truth?" "The truth is that you're a pathetic, lonely woman who couldn't stand seeing the rest of us succeed. The truth is that you tried to steal from Pearl while she was dying. I was making investments, using insider information she gave you in confidence. She was my grandmother too. Then why didn't you visit her? Why didn't you call? Why didn't you care about her until you thought you could profit from her death?" The room went silent. Sydney's face twisted with rage. Because she was old and boring and obsessed with the past. Because listening to her stories was torture. Because she smelled like medicine and talked about dead people. "Sydney," Zara gasped. "What? It's true. We all thought it. Kendall was the only one pathetic enough to actually pretend to enjoy it." "I didn't pretend," I said quietly. "I loved her." "You loved her money." I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Pearl's voice filled the room. "Kendall, dear, could you help me organize these photos? I want to make sure everyone gets the right memories when I'm gone." Then my voice. "Of course, Pearl. Tell me about this one." "That's your mother when she was 5. She was such a beautiful child. I wish she'd lived to see you grow up." Sydney's face went white. The recording continued. "Pearl, you don't have to give me anything. I'm just happy to spend time with you. I know, sweetheart, that's why you're getting everything." I stopped the recording. She knew Sydney. She knew exactly who cared about her and who was just waiting for her to die. Paige started crying. Stella had put her phone down. Even Bowen looked ashamed. Sydney looked around the room desperately. "You're all just going to let her get away with this?" "Get away with what?" Zara asked. "Loving her grandmother?" "With stealing our inheritance." "It was never your inheritance," I said. "It was Pearl's money to leave to whoever she chose." Sydney pulled out a folder. "I have evidence that you manipulated her. Witness statements, medical records." "You have lies," Curtis said, stepping into the room. I hadn't heard him arrive. "And I have court orders blocking your access to Pearl's medical records and a cease and desist letter for your private investigator." Sydney stared at him. "You can't do that." "I just did. Your legal challenge is over, Sydney. You have no grounds, no evidence, and no case." "This isn't over," Sydney whispered. "Yes," I said, "it is." Sydney looked around the room one more time, her family staring at her with a mixture of shame and pity. Then she grabbed her purse and stormed out. The front door slammed. A car engine roared to life. In the silence that followed, Paige whispered, "What have we done?" The silence in Zara's living room stretched until Paige broke it with a sob. "I keep thinking about Grandma's last birthday party. She asked me to sit with her, and I said I had to take a work call. It wasn't even important." Stella looked up from her hands. "I posted a selfie with her that day. Got 3,000 likes. I was more excited about the engagement than spending time with her." "She knew," Ainsley whispered. "She knew we were all fake." Bowen cleared his throat. "I think I should apologize. I pushed Zara to contest the will. I was thinking about our retirement, not about what Pearl actually wanted." Zara nodded slowly. "We all failed her, but Kendall..." She looked at me. "You didn't fail her. You loved her when the rest of us were too selfish to try." "I wasn't trying to be noble," I said. "I just enjoyed her company." "That's what made it noble." Curtis gathered his papers. "The legal challenges are over. Sydney's attorney withdrew this afternoon after I showed him the evidence of her manipulation attempts. The will stands." "What about the criminal charges?" Paige asked. "The state board will handle your licensing violations. Cooperate fully, show remorse, and you might keep your career." "And Stella's fraud charges?" "She's paying back everyone who donated to her fake fundraiser. The DA might accept restitution in lieu of prosecution." Stella nodded gratefully. "I've already started the refunds. I'm selling everything I own to make it right." "What about Sydney?" Ainsley asked. Curtis frowned. "Her real estate license is suspended pending investigation. The properties she bought using Pearl's information. That's complicated. She might have to sell them at a loss." "She'll blame me for that too," I said. "Probably. But that's not your responsibility anymore." After everyone left, I sat alone in Pearl's kitchen, my kitchen now, reading her journal by lamplight. The last entry was dated 3 days before she died. Kendall brought me tea and asked about the old photo albums. She laughs at my stories like she's hearing them for the first time, even though I've told them a dozen times. She doesn't know I'm leaving her everything yet. I hope she'll understand why. The others see dollar signs when they look at me. She sees a person worth loving, That's rarer than money. My phone buzzed, a text from Ainsley. Thank you for showing mercy tonight. I know I didn't deserve it. Then another from Stella. I'm sorry for everything. Grandma deserved better from all of us. Even Paige sent a message. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about everything. I hope someday you can forgive me. But nothing from Sydney. The next morning, I drove to the lake house with a box of Pearl's things. I wanted to set up a small memorial corner with her favourite books and photos. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Sydney's car parked by the dock. She was sitting in the same spot where Zara had been the night before, staring at the water. But something was different. Her shoulders were shaking. I approached carefully. Sydney? She looked up, her face streaked with tears. I lost my biggest client today, the Riverside development deal. They said they couldn't work with someone under ethics investigation. I sat down beside her, keeping my distance. That deal was worth $2 million in commission, she continued. I was going to use that money to pay back my investors. What will you do now? I don't know. Bowen's talking about bankruptcy. Mom won't even look at me. She wiped her nose with her sleeve. I keep thinking about that recording you played, the one where Grandma was talking about Mom. What about it? She sounded so happy talking to you. When's the last time anyone sounded happy talking to me? I didn't answer. I used to be different, you know. Before I got so focused on success and money and proving myself. She picked up a stone and threw it into the water. I remember being 8 years old, sitting right here with Grandma, learning to skip stones. She remembered that too. She wrote about it in her journal. Sydney's head snapped up. She did. She wrote about all of us, the good memories and the bad ones. What did she say about me? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a photo I'd taken of one journal page. She wrote, Sydney has such potential. She's smart and driven, but she's lost her way. I hope someday she finds her way back to the little girl who used to bring me dandelions and call them flowers. Sydney started crying again. I brought her dandelions? Every summer visit until you turned 12. I don't remember that. She did. We sat in silence, watching the water. Finally, Sydney spoke. I can't take back what I did. To you, to her, to the family. No, you can't. Is there any way? Could we ever? I don't know, Sydney. That depends on who you choose to be going forward. She nodded slowly. I think I need to figure that out first. Sydney stood up and walked back to her car. Before getting in, she turned around. Kendall, I'm glad she chose you. You deserved it. After she left, I sat by the water until sunset, thinking about Pearl's words. Revenge is a dish best served with precision, not rage. She'd been right. The precision hadn't been in the planning or the evidence or the legal maneuvers. It had been in showing them exactly who they were and giving them the choice of who they wanted to become. My phone rang. Curtis. Kendall, I have the paperwork ready for the Pearl Foundation. Are you sure you want to dedicate $2 million to scholarships for non-traditional students? I'm sure. And the lake house? You're really turning it into a retreat center for women starting over? Pearl would have loved that. She would have been proud of you. I looked out at the water, imagining Pearl sitting beside me, probably making some dry comment about karma and family drama. Curtis, add one more thing to the foundation charter. I want to fund therapy sessions for family members working to rebuild relationships. That's very generous. It's very necessary. As I drove home, I passed Sydney's real estate office. The lights were off, a temporarily closed sign in the window. But I also saw her car in the parking lot behind the building. Maybe she was inside, figuring out who she wanted to be. Maybe they all were. Pearl's house, my house, was quiet when I got home. I made tea, fed the cats, and sat down to write the first entry in my own journal. Today, I learned that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's giving them the chance to destroy themselves and then offering them a way back. Some will take it, some won't, but at least they'll know the choice was theirs. Outside, the wind chimes Pearl had hung on the porch played their gentle song. I smiled and kept writing. The house felt full of possibilities.